The year was 2472, and humanity had found its place among the stars, albeit not the place they had hoped for. The Unity Cluster, an interstellar confederation of alien species, each convinced of their own supremacy, had reluctantly allowed humans into their ranks. On the capital world of Equinox, with its gleaming spires, zero-G promenades, and hollow markets, humans were tolerated, but marginalized, treated as cosmic newcomers who hadn't yet earned their place at the table. Captain Mara, Remy. Reyes stood at the viewport of her freighter, the wayward horizon, watching the crystalline structures of Equinox's orbital station grow larger as they approached. Her weathered hands traced an old scar along her jawline, a souvenir from Earth's border wars when she'd served in the naval forces. That was before she'd traded military precision for the freedom of independent shipping. Preparing docking procedures. Captain, called Jin Spark Volkov from the pilot's chair. His fingers danced across the holographic controls with a flourish that was entirely unnecessary, but completely characteristic. Another thrilling delivery of Earth's finest synthetic fertilizers. The glamour of space, am I right? Remy smiled despite herself. Spark had been with her since the beginning of her independent ventures, a jokester with talent to spare and loyalty that ran deeper than most oceans back on Earth. Just dock us clean. Spark! I want to be in and out before Equinox Customs decides to make an example of us again. You wound me, Captain. When have I ever given you reason to doubt my piloting expertise? Would you like the list chronologically or alphabetically by disaster type? She retorted, but her tone was warm. The comm system crackled to life, interrupting their banter. Incoming transmission from Equinox Station. It's marked priority, announced their third crew member, stepping onto the bridge. Dr. Caius Thal was the newest addition to their small crew, an enigmatic xenopsychologist who had signed on 6 months ago, claiming to be researching interspecies communication patterns for an academic publication. Tall and lean, with silver-streaked dark hair and eyes that seemed to catch every detail. Thal had proven himself useful enough that Remy had stopped questioning his real motives. Almost. Put it through, Remy ordered, straightening her worn captain's jacket. The holographic display flickered, revealing the stern visage of an Equinox Unity patrol officer, a Vexari, with characteristic iridescent scales and vertical pupils. Freighter Wayward Horizon, this is Unity Patrol Command. You will power down all propulsion and prepare for boarding. Maintain your current position. Remy frowned. Patrol Command, we have all requisite clearances for this delivery. Our manifest was submitted and approved 3 standard cycles ago. The Vexari's expression didn't change. This is not a customs inspection. Wayward Horizon. You are being detained on suspicion of temporal smuggling. Resistance will result in immediate sanctions. Temporal smuggling, Remy repeated, glancing at Spark, who looked equally bewildered. There must be some mistake. The Unity Patrol AI has flagged your vessel for harboring forbidden human dream tech devices. The officer continued coldly. Technology designed to glimpse alternate futures is strictly prohibited under Unity Treaty Section 39B. Remy felt her stomach drop. I've never even heard of dream tech. We're hauling fertilizer, for stars' sake. Save your protestations for the magistrate. Human, prepare for boarding. The transmission cut off abruptly. Remy turned to her crew, her mind racing. Spark? What in blazes is dream tech? Spark raised his hands defensively. Don't look at me. I'd stick to engine mods and bad jokes. Temporal tech is way above my pay grade. Dr. Thal stepped forward, his expression troubled. Dream tech is a theoretical human technology that was rumored to exist during the border wars. Devices that supposedly allowed users to experience possible futures, to dream while awake, as it were. The Unity banned research into temporal technologies after the schism of 2415. And how exactly do you know this? Remy asked, eyes narrowing. Thal hesitated. Academic interest. My research touches on cross-cultural technological taboos. Before Remy could press further, the ship shuddered as docking clamps engaged without their permission. Through the viewport, she could see Unity patrol vessels boxing them in, sleek and predatory. "Captain," Spark said quietly, "if they convict us of temporal smuggling—" "I know." Remy cut him off. The Penumbra prisons were infamous, century-long sentences in perpetual twilight, designed to realign criminals with Unity values. And a conviction would be yet another stain on humanity's already tarnished reputation. "We need to figure out who's setting us up," Remy said firmly. "And why? Because I've never laid eyes on any dream tech, and I'm not about to rot in Penumbra for something I didn't do." Dr. Thal nodded, a curious intensity in his gaze. "I may have contacts who could help us access Unity archives. Find out more about this dream tech accusation." "Contacts?" Remy raised an eyebrow. The xenopsychologist offered a thin smile. "One doesn't study interspecies psychology without making interesting acquaintances." "Captain?" Heavy footsteps echoed through the hull as the boarding party approached. "Well," Remy said grimly, "looks like we're about to get acquainted with Unity Patrol's hospitality. Spark, initiate emergency protocols. If they seize us, the ship auto-logs everything." As the airlock hissed open, Remy stood tall, shoulders squared. Whatever game was being played, someone had just made a serious mistake in choosing her as a pawn. "So, you have precisely 5 minutes before the next security sweep," Dr. Thal whispered, fingers dancing over the ancient interface of the derelict Unity archive. 3 days after their detention, Remy, Spark, and Thal had managed to secure temporary release pending investigation, a minor miracle that had cost most of Remy's emergency funds in legal bribes. Now they were breaking into a forgotten data repository on Equinox's lower levels, hoping to find answers before their preliminary hearing. "Remind me again why we're committing actual crimes while under investigation for crimes we didn't commit," Spark muttered, keeping watch near the sealed entrance. "Because the system is rigged, and the only way to clear our names is to find who's really behind this." Remy replied, scanning the dimly lit chamber. Rows of data crystals glowed faintly in their housing units, casting prismatic shadows across the dust-covered floor. "There," Dr. Thal said suddenly, pointing to a section marked with faded unified script. "Historical anomalies, human division. If there are records of dream tech, they'll be there." Remy moved swiftly to the indicated section, carefully extracting a data crystal. "How do we read these without triggering alarms?" Thal produced a small device from inside his coat. "Universal translator and reader. Modified, of course." "Of course," Remy echoed, giving him a long look. "Your academic interests seem to involve a lot of questionably legal equipment. Doctor." Thal met her gaze without flinching. "In my experience, Captain, the truth rarely resides within legally sanctioned boundaries." They worked in tense silence, scanning crystal after crystal. Meanwhile, Spark had discovered an archive AI terminal and was attempting to coax information from it. "Hey there, beautiful collection of circuits," he crooned to the antiquated system. "How about helping out a curious human? I've got some Earth comedy routines that would really compute your transistors." Humor appeal. Ineffective. The AI responded tonelessly. "This unit requires proper authorization." "Worth a shot." Spark shrugged at Remy's exasperated look. "Maybe it prefers knock-knock jokes?" "Focus, Spark," Remy chided, though she couldn't entirely suppress her smile, even in dire circumstances. Spark's attempts at levity were a lifeline to sanity. Her smile faded as memories surfaced unbidden. Her last official mission as Naval Captain Reyes. The hesitation that had cost Lieutenant Commander Mercer his life. The court-martial. The nightmares that still woke her in cold sweats. She'd sworn never to fail another crew member. Yet here they were, in danger because of her. "Captain, I found something." Thal's voice cut through her dark thoughts. Remy joined him at a display showing schematics for a small device, no larger than a credit chip. "Is that it? Dream Tech?" Indeed. According to these records, Dream Tech was developed on Earth around 2410, just before the border wars. The technology supposedly allowed users to experience glimpses of potential futures, not true precognition, but a form of highly advanced probability mapping that manifested as dreamlike visions. Why would anyone want to frame us with this specific tech? Remy wondered aloud. Because it's uniquely human, Thal explained. After the schism, the Unity banned all temporal research. Humans were the last species to join the cluster. So, pinning forbidden temporal tech on us reinforces the narrative that we're dangerous upstarts who don't respect Unity laws. Guys?" Spark called from the AI terminal. "I think I broke it." They turned to see the terminal flickering wildly, lines of code scrolling at impossible speeds. "What did you do?" Remy demanded. "I may have tried to upload some 21st century stand-up routines as a distraction technique," Spark admitted. "Apparently, existential humor causes logical paradoxes in Unity AIs. Analyzing. Humor. Parameters." The AI sputtered. "Why? Did. The. Chicken. Error. Crossing borders represents unauthorized movement. Error." Suddenly, all the lights in the archive flashed red. "Security breach detected," announced a different, more authoritative voice. "Lockdown initiated." "Time to go," Remy declared, snatching the data crystal Thal had been examining. "Spark, remind me to review your distraction techniques when we're not fleeing for our lives. If we live, I promise to workshop my material better," Spark replied, already sprinting for their exit route. They barely made it out through a maintenance shaft before security drones swarmed the archive. Crouched in a service tunnel 3 levels down, they caught their breath. "That was too close," Remy panted. "Please tell me we got something useful." Thal nodded, holding up the stolen crystal. Names, dates, and something unexpected. A connection to a High Magistrate Saran Voss. "Voss?" Remy frowned. "The head of temporal enforcement?" "The very same," Thal confirmed. "And according to these records, he was stationed along the border during the wars, directly opposing human expansion." "So this could be personal," Remy mused. "A decades-old vendetta." "It gets more interesting," Thal continued. "There's mention of a classified operation called Nightmare Contingency, an anti-human initiative that was officially discontinued after the peace accords." "But unofficially?" Spark asked. Thal's expression was grim. "That's what we need to find out." Later that evening, the three of them met in a zero-G lounge called the Floating Point, a neutral establishment frequented by species from across the cluster. The anti-gravity environment meant everyone was equally awkward, a rare level playing field in Unity society. Remy maneuvered through floating patrons toward a secluded corner where Dr. Thal waited, his lean form anchored to a tethering point with practiced ease. In the zero-G environment, his usual composure seemed even more pronounced. "Where's Spark?" she asked, securing herself to an adjacent tether. Testing his theory that zero-G juggling improves if you've had exactly 2 Jovian whiskeys, Thal replied, nodding toward the bar, where Spark was indeed attempting to keep several colorful orbs in a complex orbital pattern around himself. Despite everything, Remy laughed. That's Spark, finding joy in chaos. An admirable quality, Thal observed. One you share, though you hide it better. Remy gave him a sharp look. Analyzing me, Doctor? Professional hazard, he replied with a faint smile. Though in your case, I find myself more curious than clinical. There was something in his tone that made Remy pause. In the ambient blue lighting of the lounge, with stars visible through the transparent ceiling dome, Thal looked less like the reserved academic and more like something else entirely. Something dangerous, perhaps, or enticing. I've been doing some research of my own, she said, pushing the thought away. On you. If she expected surprise, she was disappointed. Thal merely raised an eyebrow. Find anything interesting? Not nearly enough. Your credentials are impeccable. Too impeccable. Publications in all the right journals, references from respected institutions. Yet almost no personal history before 10 years ago. Thal took a sip from his hovering drink. Perhaps I'm simply private. Or perhaps Dr. Caius Thal isn't your real name, Remy challenged. For a long moment, he said nothing. Just studied her with those perceptive eyes. Finally, he reached out, his fingers stopping just short of touching the scar on her jaw. We all have our scars, Captain. Some are just more visible than others. He withdrew his hand. But I assure you, my interest in clearing your name is genuine. Why? She pressed. You signed on for a mundane shipping contract. You could walk away from this mess. Your name wasn't on the cargo manifest. Let's just say I have my own reasons to oppose the likes of Magistrate Voss. Thal replied. The Unity preaches harmony while practicing subjugation. Species like mine were early members, yet still face discrimination. Your species? Remy frowned. Thal appeared entirely human. Before he could elaborate, Spark floated over, triumphantly surrounded by his successfully juggled orbs. Captain, Doctor, I've made a scientific breakthrough in the field of intoxicated physics. Congratulations, Remy said dryly. Any breakthroughs on our more pressing problem? Spark's expression sobered slightly as he anchored himself. Actually, yes. I got chatty with a dispatch officer at the bar. 3 arms. Great at mixing drinks. Turns out Magistrate Voss has personally taken over your case. Pulled rank to do it, too. That confirms our suspicions. Thal nodded. This is targeted. The officer also mentioned something interesting. Spark continued, lowering his voice. Apparently, similar DreamTech charges have been filed against 6 other human captains in the past month, all dismissed for lack of evidence. Until yours. So I'm not the first target, just the first one they found a way to make stick, Remy murmured. But why me? Your border war record, Thal suggested. You were decorated for actions in the very sector where Voss served. Perhaps you crossed paths. Remy shook her head. I'd remember a high-ranking Unity officer. He might have been lower ranked then, Spark pointed out, or working through proxies. Regardless, Thal interjected, we need more information on this nightmare contingency. The archive data was incomplete. Remy nodded decisively. Tomorrow we'll... She was interrupted by a chirp from their secured comms. The message was text only, sent through an anonymous relay. The shadow knows the light casts it. DreamTech conspiracy deeper than Voss. Meet representative at Docking Bay, 7 Yassi. Midnight. Come alone. Captain Reyes. Well, Spark said after a moment, that's not ominously cryptic at all. It's obviously a trap, Thal stated flatly. Maybe, Remy conceded. Or maybe it's someone who knows what's really going on. She made a quick decision. I'll go, but not alone. You two will be my backup. Rushing into danger, This feels familiar. Spark sighed, but his expression was resolute. I'll bring my lucky blaster. And I'll bring my intellect, which has generally proven more useful, Thal added. Their eyes met Remy's, and in that moment, she felt something she hadn't experienced since before the border wars: absolute trust in her crew. It was as terrifying as it was comforting. Let's go meet our mysterious messenger, she said. High Magistrate Saran Voss stood before the vast observation window in his private chambers, hands clasped behind his back as he surveyed the gleaming expanse of equinox below. His exoskeleton, a mark of his Telsari heritage, glinted in the starlight. Plates of polished chitin reinforced with ceremonial medals that denoted his rank. The human captain's preliminary hearing is scheduled for tomorrow, reported Lieutenant Ara Fek, his protege and most trusted aide. A fellow Telsari, though younger and less imposing. Fek had served Voss faithfully for 5 years. Good, Voss replied without turning. And the evidence? In place. Magistrate. The DreamTech device was successfully planted in their cargo during the initial boarding. The inspection logs have been adjusted to show it was discovered during the first search. Excellent. Voss finally turned, his compound eyes reflecting the city lights. This particular human has evaded justice for far too long. Sir, Fek ventured cautiously, may I ask why Captain Reyes specifically? The intelligence division suggested several human vessels with higher profiles that would make more effective examples. Voss stiffened almost imperceptibly. Are you questioning my judgment, Lieutenant? No, Magistrate. I simply wish to understand the strategic reasoning. After a long moment, Voss moved to his desk and activated a secure holographic display. An image appeared, a younger Remy in Earth naval uniform, standing proudly beside a damaged ship. 27 years ago, during the border wars, Captain Reyes commanded a small patrol vessel that intercepted a Unity cruiser near the Viridian Nebula. The cruiser was on a classified mission, one that could have ended the war decisively in our favor. Voss's mandibles clicked in barely controlled anger. Instead, Reyes destroyed the cruiser, killing everyone aboard, including my broodmate. Fek's antenna quivered in surprise. I was not aware, sir. Few are. The incident was classified by both sides after the peace accords. Voss's voice had turned cold. Captain Reyes was following orders, of course. She was even decorated for her heroism. But orders can only excuse so much blood. So this is personal, Fek stated flatly. It is justice, Voss corrected sharply. But justice that serves a greater purpose. The DreamTech conspiracy will expose humanity's continuing defiance of Unity laws. When Reyes is convicted, we'll have precedent to implement stricter controls on all human activities within the cluster. And nightmare contingency? Voss's compound eyes gleamed. We'll proceed as planned. The humans have been tolerated long enough. It's time they learned their proper place in the Unity hierarchy. He dismissed Fek with a gesture, turning back to the window. Soon, he thought. Soon, the debt of blood would be paid, and the natural order of the Unity restored. At exactly midnight, Remy approached Docking Bay 7 Aussie alone, at least, apparently alone. Spark was positioned in the ventilation system above, while Dr. Thal monitored from a maintenance alcove with a clear line of sight. The bay was dimly lit and deserted, containing only a single small shuttle of unfamiliar design. As Remy drew closer, the shuttle's hatch slid open silently, revealing a shadowy interior. Captain Reyes, called a distorted voice from within. Enter, quickly! I prefer conversations where I can see who I'm talking to, Remy replied, standing her ground. There was a pause. Then a figure emerged, humanoid, but entirely encased in a suit of shifting, light-absorbing material that made their precise form difficult to discern. A tech phantom. Remy breathed. She'd heard rumors of these rogue hackers who could manipulate technology with thought alone, thanks to illegal neural interfaces. They were said to exist in the spaces between reality and the Unity's vast data networks. We have little time, the figure said, voice still modulated. You have been framed as part of a conspiracy against humanity, one orchestrated from the highest levels of Unity governance. Tell me something I haven't figured out, Remy challenged. The dream tech is real, the Phantom stated. But it was not created by humans. It was developed by a secret Unity faction during the Border Wars, designed to destabilize human military operations by inducing false visions of future battle outcomes. Remy frowned. If that's true, why frame humans for creating it? Because dream tech was never sanctioned by the Unity Council. Those who developed it, including your friend Magistrate Voss, violated their own laws in their zeal to defeat humanity. The Phantom stepped closer. When peace was declared, the project was officially terminated. Unofficially, Voss and his allies continued refining the technology under the codename Nightmare Contingency. To what end? To justify renewed hostilities against Earth, DreamTech creates experiences so vivid they can traumatize or even drive users mad. By distributing it among humans and then discovering its effects, Voss plans to paint humanity as unstable and dangerous, worthy of containment or worse. Remy's mind raced. How do you know all this? The Phantom seemed to hesitate. Some of us were involved in the early development, before we understood the full implications. And now you're what, seeking redemption by helping me? Call it enlightened self-interest. If Voss succeeds, the resulting conflict will devastate both humans and the Unity. A high-pitched whine suddenly cut through the air. The Phantom stiffened. Detection drones. We've been found. They thrust a small object toward Remy, a data chip. Everything we know is here. Your ship has been moved to Impound Dock 23. We've liberated it from Unity control. Why help me specifically? Remy pressed, taking the chip. Because you faced Voss before and prevailed, at the Viridian Nebula. Before Remy could ask more questions, the Phantom retreated to their shuttle. Trust Dr. Thal. He knows more than he's revealed. But be wary. Voss has eyes everywhere. With that cryptic warning, the hatch sealed and the shuttle lifted off, its engines eerily silent. Moments later, a squad of security drones burst into the bay, their sensors scanning for the departed craft. Time to go, came Sparks' voice through Remy's concealed comm. Like, really go. Right now. Meet at Impound Dock 23, she replied, already moving toward an exit. Apparently, we've got our ship back. The wayward horizon streaked away from Equinox, pushing its engines harder than Remy would normally allow. Behind them, Unity patrol vessels scrambled in pursuit, but Sparks' unorthodox piloting, combined with what appeared to be deliberate glitches in the station's tracking systems, gave them the lead they needed. I still can't believe that worked, Spark exclaimed from the pilot's chair. When the docking clamps just disengaged themselves. Beautiful. Your Phantom friends have serious skills. Captain. They're not my friends, Remy corrected, reviewing the ship's systems for tampering. And I don't trust gifts without understanding the giver's motives. Dr. Thal entered the bridge, having completed his inspection of the cargo hold. The ship appears clean. No obvious tracking devices or sabotage. However, I did find this. He held up a small, silvery device no larger than a thumbnail. It pulsed with a faint, opalescent light. Dream tech, Remy guessed, eyes narrowing. Thal nodded. Exactly matching the schematics we found in the archives. It was hidden in a maintenance panel, placed there during the boarding, I presume. So that's how they planned to frame us, Spark mused. Plant the evidence, then discover it during a follow-up inspection. The question is, what do we do with it now? Remy stared at the device with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. I advise caution, Thal said, carefully placing the dream tech in a containment box. If the Phantom's information is correct, this technology can have severe psychological effects. Speaking of information, Remy held up the data chip she'd received. Let's see what our mysterious benefactor provided. They gathered around the main console as Remy inserted the chip. Immediately, the view screen filled with documents, schematics, and video files. A treasure trove of classified Unity intelligence. This is incredible, Thal murmured, rapidly scanning through the data. Internal memos, experimental logs, even personal correspondence between Voss and other conspirators. Can we use it to clear our names? Spark asked. Remy frowned. Not directly. None of this is admissible in a Unity tribunal without proper authentication, which we can't get without revealing our source. There's something else, Thal said, his expression troubled. According to these files, the Nightmare contingency isn't just about framing humans for dream tech. It's a multi-phase plan to systematically undermine human standing in the Unity. How many phases are we talking about? Remy asked. 5. Dream tech accusations are only phase 1. The later phases include economic sanctions, restricted movement, forced relocation to designated habitation zones, and eventually... Eventually what? Spark prompted when Thal hesitated. Revocation of Unity membership and potential military action against Earth colonies deemed non-compliant. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. So it's not just about me, Remy finally said. It's about all of humanity. And it's already in motion, Thal confirmed. There have been similar dream tech accusations across 3 sectors in the past month alone. Remy's hands clenched into fists. Then we need to stop it. Expose Voss and his conspiracy before it goes any further. How? Spark asked. We're fugitives now. The moment we show our faces on any Unity world, we'll be arrested. We need allies, Remy decided, and more concrete evidence, something that can't be dismissed as forgery or hearsay. Thal was still examining the files. There may be a way. According to this, Voss maintains a private server in the Unity Citadel, where he stores his most sensitive communications. If we could access that. Break into the Citadel? Spark laughed incredulously. The most secure building in the entire cluster? Why not just fly directly into a black hole? It would be quicker and less painful. Actually, Remy said slowly, it might be possible. During the border wars, Earth intelligence mapped every entry point in the Citadel, including some that the Unity doesn't know exist. Both men turned to her in surprise. And you know this how exactly? Spark asked. Remy's expression turned distant. Let's just say my naval career involved more than ship-to-ship combat. She refocused on her crew. But first, we need a safe haven to plan. Somewhere outside Unity jurisdiction. I might know a place, Thal offered. A research vessel in the Halcyon Nebula. The scientist who owns it owes me a favor. Then set course, Remy ordered Spark, and engage the stealth systems. We're not out of danger yet. As the wayward horizon disappeared into the vastness of space, leaving Equinox behind. Remy found herself drawn to the containment box, holding the Dream Tech device. Its soft pulsing seemed almost like a heartbeat, a dangerous temptation, whispering of futures that might be. The research vessel Empirical Drift floated serenely among the bioluminescent gases of the Halcyon Nebula, its transparent observation dome offering breathtaking views of the cosmic light show outside. Dr. Thal's acquaintance had proven surprisingly accommodating, granting them full use of the vessel while she continued her studies at a nearby outpost. 4 days into their sanctuary, Remy found herself alone in the observation dome late in the ship's night cycle. Unable to sleep, she'd sought solace in the nebula's ethereal beauty. The swirling colors reminded her of Earth's aurora borealis, a sight she hadn't seen since childhood. "Trouble sleeping?" came Dr. Thal's voice from behind her. Remy didn't turn. "Old habit from my naval days. Always restless before a mission." Thal moved to stand beside her, his profile illuminated by the nebula's glow. "We've made good progress. Spark's modifications to the ship's systems should allow us to approach the Citadel undetected." "It's what happens after that concerns me," Remy admitted. "Even with the access points I know, the security inside will be formidable." "We'll find a way," Thal said with quiet confidence. "We have to." Remy studied him curiously. "You've never explained why you're so invested in this fight." "Doctor, what does a xenopsychologist gain from opposing a high-ranking Unity official?" For a long moment, Thal was silent, gazing out at the nebula. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, deeper, with a subtle harmonic quality that hadn't been there before. "My real name is Caius the Lyrex," he said. Was a member of the Selenari, one of the founding species of the Unity." As he spoke, his appearance seemed to shimmer slightly, like heat distortion above a flame. His human features remained. But somehow, Remy could now perceive something else beneath them, an impression of luminous skin and eyes with vertical pupils. "A perception filter," she realized. "You've been disguising yourself as human." Thal nodded. "The Selenari were scientists, philosophers. We helped develop the very technology that allows the Unity to function across vast distances. But we also questioned. Always questioned. The Unity Council found this inconvenient." "What happened?" Remy asked softly. "Officially, the Selenari homeworld was destroyed in a terrible accident, a quantum resonance cascade. In reality, it was no accident. Voss was one of the architects of our extinction, back when he served in scientific oversight." "Stars above," Remy breathed. "I'm sorry. I survived because I was off-world during the attack. For years, I've gathered evidence, sought allies, all while living under this human guise. And now you're helping me to get to Voss," Remy concluded. Thal turned to face her fully. "I'm helping you because what happened to my people is happening again. To humans. The patterns are identical. First isolation, then demonization, then destruction." Without thinking, Remy reached out, her fingers brushing against his cheek. The perception filter rippled at her touch, revealing a glimpse of luminous blue beneath. "Thank you for trusting me with the truth," she said. Thal captured her hand with his own. "Truth is rare in the Unity. Captain, those who value it must stand together." Around them, the nebula's gases shifted, creating a moment of perfect, suspended beauty. Remy felt something change between them. A barrier dissolved, a connection deepened. Before either could speak further, a small object floated into the dome, propelled by the vessel's artificial gravity adjustments. The DreamTech device, somehow freed from its containment box. "How did that get here?" Remy frowned, reaching for it instinctively. "Captain, don't," Thal began, but his warning came too late. As Remy's fingers closed around the device, it pulsed once, brightly, and her vision swam. The nebula's colors intensified, swirling faster, enveloping her consciousness. She was falling, tumbling through memories and possibilities. A childhood home on Earth, her mother's garden of impossible flowers that sang with the wind. The Naval Academy, the weight of command, the faces of those she'd lost. Lieutenant Commander Mercer, his desperate transmission as his ship burned. "Captain, why didn't you come? We waited for you." And then, something new, a possible future. The Unity Citadel in flames, Earth colonies under bombardment. Voss standing triumphant amid the destruction, his compound eyes reflecting the fires of human defeat. With a gasp, Remy snapped back to reality, the dream tech falling from her trembling fingers. Thal caught her as she staggered, his arms strong and steady. "What did you see?" he asked urgently. "Everything," she whispered. "The past, a possible future. Voss wins unless we stop him. The war begins again. But this time, humanity loses." Thal guided her to a seat, his expression concerned. "The visions aren't certain futures, Remy. They're probabilities, shaped by your own fears and memories." "They felt real," she insisted. "Too real." "That's the danger of dream tech," Thal explained. "It blurs the line between memory, imagination, and possibility. It's why it was banned. The psychological impact can be devastating." Remy took a deep breath, centering herself. "Well, one thing's certain. We need to move against Voss sooner rather than later." She stood, her resolve strengthened despite the lingering disorientation. "Tell Spark to prepare the ship. We leave for the Citadel in 6 hours." As she moved to exit the dome, Thal carefully retrieved the DreamTech device. "Captain," he called after her, "what will you do with the knowledge you've gained, the vision you experienced?" Remy paused at the doorway. "Use it," she said simply. "Every advantage, every insight. We'll need them all for what comes next." Because now she understood what truly haunted her about her failure during the border wars. Not just Mercer's death, but the paralysis of indecision that had caused it. This time would be different. This time, she would act without hesitation. Lieutenant Ara Feck stood at rigid attention in Magistrate Voss's private chambers, trying to conceal her unease. The past week had been troubling. Ever since Captain Reyes's escape, Voss had grown increasingly volatile, issuing harsher edicts against human nationals throughout the cluster. "The fugitives have been sighted in the Halcyon sector," Voss announced, studying a holographic report. "Dispatch a hunter squadron immediately." "Yes, Magistrate," Feck acknowledged. "However, the Halcyon Nebula falls under scientific jurisdiction. We would need approval from the Research Council to—" "The approval is granted," Voss cut her off sharply. "I've seen to it personally." Feck hesitated. "Sir, with respect, bypassing proper channels risks drawing unwanted attention to the nightmare contingency. Perhaps we should proceed more cautiously." Voss turned to her slowly, his exoskeletal plates shifting in a pattern that signaled dangerous irritation. "Are you questioning my methods, Lieutenant?" "No, Magistrate," Feck replied automatically. "I merely suggest that—" "You suggest nothing," Voss interrupted. "You obey. Is that understood?" "Perfectly, sir." "Good." Voss activated another holographic display, showing schematics for what appeared to be a weapons system. "Phase 2 will commence regardless of whether Reyes is recaptured. The Council has approved emergency measures against human shipping following the DreamTech incidents." Feck studied the schematics with growing alarm. "These are orbital platforms, defense systems." "Interdiction systems," Voss corrected, "to be installed around key human colonies, for their protection, of course." "Of course," Feck echoed hollowly. The platforms were clearly offensive in capability, designed to restrict and eventually strangle human interstellar movement. "You seem troubled, Lieutenant," Voss observed coldly. Feck straightened. "Not at all, sir. I am committed to Unity security. See that you remain so." Voss dismissed her with a gesture. "The Hunter Squadron leaves in 1 hour. You will command it personally." After Feck had departed, Voss returned to his private terminal, activating a secure channel to his co-conspirators on the Unity Council. "The Reyes situation is under control," he reported. "The fugitives will be captured or eliminated shortly." "See that they are," replied Counselor Zaris, his tentacled form barely visible in the encrypted transmission. "This operation has already drawn more attention than we anticipated." "A minor setback," Voss assured him. "Once Phase 2 is implemented, opposition will be irrelevant. The humans will be contained, their influence neutralized." "And the dream tech?" another counselor inquired. "A means to an end," Voss replied smoothly. "One that has served its purpose admirably." After ending the transmission, Voss remained at his terminal, calling up an old file, footage from the border wars. Specifically, the destruction of the Unity cruiser Inexorable Truth at the Viridian Nebula. He watched again as the human vessel commanded by Reyes opened fire, crippling the cruiser's engines. Watched as secondary explosions ripped through the ship. Watched as his broodmate, Commander Thask, broadcast a final transmission before the ship disintegrated. 27 years of hatred crystallized in that moment. Soon, Voss thought. Soon, justice would be served, and the natural order restored. The Wayward Horizon approached the Unity Citadel using a complex approach vector that kept them in the shadow of larger vessels and orbital structures. Spark's piloting skills, combined with the stealth modifications they'd made in the Halcyon Nebula, had gotten them this far, but the most dangerous part of their mission still lay ahead. "Approaching designated insertion point," Spark announced, his usual joviality tempered by concentration. "One shot at this, Captain." Remy nodded, checking her equipment one final time. "Remember, if anything goes wrong, your priority is getting the ship to safety. The evidence means nothing if no one lives to reveal it. With all due respect, Captain," Spark replied without taking his eyes off the controls. "We're not leaving without you, so maybe focus on not getting caught, yeah?" Beside her, Dr. Thal, or Caius Thalarex, as she now knew him, was making final adjustments to a specialized data extraction device they'd cobbled together from the research vessel's equipment. "This should bypass Voss's security protocols," he explained, "but we'll only have minutes before the system detects the intrusion." "Minutes is all we need," Remy assured him. "Get in, extract the evidence, get out. Simple." "When has anything involving you ever been simple, Captain?" Thal asked with a raised eyebrow. Despite the tension, Remy smiled. "First time for everything, Doctor." The ship shuddered slightly as Spark maneuvered them beneath the massive structure of the Citadel, approaching a maintenance access point that, according to Remy's intelligence, remained unmonitored. "Docking complete," Spark announced. "Environmental seal established. You're good to go." Remy and Thal moved quickly to the airlock. Before cycling it open, Remy turned to her xenopsychologist. "Last chance to back out. Doctor, what we're about to do is high treason by Unity standards." Thal's expression was resolute. "I committed to this path long ago. Captain, the Unity betrayed its principles and my people. First." With a nod, Remy activated the airlock. Together, they slipped into the shadowy underbelly of the Unity Citadel, the heart of power in the Interstellar Confederation. Navigating through maintenance ducts and auxiliary corridors, they avoided the main security checkpoints. Remy's knowledge of the Citadel's layout proved accurate, though they encountered several new security measures that hadn't existed during the border wars. The central server room should be 2 levels up, Remy whispered, consulting a holographic map projected from her wrist device. But it'll be heavily guarded. We need a distraction, Thal agreed. At that moment, their comms activated. "Captain," came Sparks' voice. "You've got company. Unity patrol vessel just docked, and you're not going to believe who's leading them." "Voss?" Remy guessed. "Lieutenant Feck, and she came with a full tactical team." Remy and Thal exchanged concerned glances. "They couldn't possibly know we're here," Thal said. "Unless we were followed from the nebula," Remy realized. "Change of plans. We need to move faster." They quickened their pace, finally reaching a service junction near the server level. As they prepared to ascend, footsteps echoed from an adjacent corridor. "Hide!" Remy hissed, pulling Thal into a recessed alcove. A patrol of Unity guards marched past, led by none other than Lieutenant Ara Feck herself. The Telsari officer moved with military precision, her exoskeleton gleaming under the Citadel's lights. "Continue the search," Feck ordered her team. "They must be found before they reach the restricted levels." As the patrol moved away, Remy's grip on her concealed blaster tightened. "They know we're here. Someone betrayed us." "Or they're tracking the dream tech," Thal suggested. "It might emit a unique energy signature." "Either way, we're running out of time," Remy said grimly. "New plan. I'll create a distraction. You get to the server room and extract the evidence." "That's too dangerous," Thal objected. "If you're captured, then you'd better work fast." Remy cut him off with a grim smile. "Here." She pressed a small device into his hand. "Universal transmitter. Send the evidence to every news outlet in the cluster. Make sure the truth gets out." Before Thal could protest further, she leaned forward and pressed her lips to his, a brief, fierce kiss. "For luck," she explained, pulling back. "Now go." Without waiting for his response, Remy slipped out of their hiding place and moved in the opposite direction. Drawing her blaster, she took aim at a security panel and fired. Alarms immediately blared throughout the section. "That ought to get their attention," she muttered, already running. Behind her, she heard Feck's voice. "There, after her!" The chase was on. Dr. Thal moved swiftly through the Citadel's service corridors, his perception filter helping him avoid detection as he made his way to the server room. Every few minutes, he heard updates over the emergency channels as Unity forces pursued Remy throughout the complex. She was leading them on an impressive chase, creating chaos across multiple levels. It was buying him time, but at tremendous risk to herself. Finally reaching the server level, Thal encountered his first major obstacle, a biometric security door. Drawing on knowledge from his Selenari heritage, he applied a small device to the scanner, a frequency modulator that caused the system to glitch just long enough for him to slip through. The central server room was a vast chamber of humming machinery, data cores stretching from floor to ceiling in neat rows. At the center stood an isolated terminal, Voss's private server, physically separated from the main network for security. Thal approached cautiously, scanning for additional safeguards. Finding none immediately visible, he connected his extraction device and began the download process. "Accessing restricted files," he murmured to himself. "Nightmare contingency protocols, DreamTech development history, communications with co-conspirators." The data began transferring, but painfully slowly. The server's security was fighting back, requiring Thal to constantly adjust his device's parameters. His comm unit suddenly activated. "Doctor," came Sparks' urgent voice. "Status update?" "Still extracting," Thal replied tensely. "The security is more robust than anticipated." Well, hurry it up. The captain's drawing a lot of heat. They've deployed temporal enforcement drones. Thal's blood ran cold. Those drones were designed for only one purpose: lethal force. How much longer? Spark pressed. 3 minutes. Minimum, Thal replied, fingers dancing across the interface. Tell her to get to extraction point Beta. I'll meet her there. Assuming she can shake the entire Unity security force, Spark said dubiously. I'll relay the message. As the download continued, Thal noticed something unexpected in the data stream. Personal logs from Voss, dating back to the border wars. Unable to resist, he opened one at random. Commander Thask's death will not be in vain, read Voss's entry. The human captain responsible, Reyes, must answer for her actions. The inexorable truth was on a peaceful mission. The humans fired without provocation. This treachery cannot stand. Thal frowned. This contradicted everything in the historical record. The inexorable truth had been a weapons platform disguised as a research vessel, targeting human colonies. Something's wrong, he muttered, digging deeper into the logs. What he found shocked him to his core. Voss truly believed his version of events. In his mind, the border wars had been instigated by humans, with Captain Reyes as a principal architect of the conflict. His entire vendetta was based on a false narrative, one he appeared to genuinely believe. Perception manipulation, Thal realized. Someone altered his memories. Before he could process this revelation, the server room door slid open. Lieutenant Feck stood in the entrance, weapon drawn. Step away from the terminal, she ordered. Hands where I can see them. Thal complied slowly. Lieutenant, I was wondering when our paths would cross. You're under arrest for espionage, sabotage, and conspiracy against the Unity, Feck stated formally. Where is Captain Reyes? Far from here, I imagine, Thal replied calmly. You've read Voss's files, Lieutenant. You know what he's planning. Feck's antennae twitched uncertainly. I follow orders. Even when those orders will lead to war, to the destruction of an entire species, just as the Selenari were destroyed? Feck's compound eyes widened slightly. Your Selenari? Impossible. They were all eliminated. Yes, by the same Unity that now targets humanity. Thal gestured to the terminal. It's all there. Lieutenant, the truth Voss doesn't want anyone to see. For a long moment, Feck seemed torn between duty and doubt. Then, to Thal's surprise, she lowered her weapon. I intercepted a transmission, she said quietly. From Voss to the Unity Council. Phase 2 of Nightmare Contingency has already begun. Weapon platforms are being deployed around human colonies. Then you understand what's at stake, Thal urged. Help us stop this before it's too late. Feck's internal struggle was visible in her rigid posture. Finally, she made her decision. Your extraction device is too slow, she said, approaching the terminal. My clearance will expedite the process. She placed her hand on the biometric scanner, overriding the security protocols. The download rate immediately tripled. Why help us? Thal asked as the data flowed. Because I've seen the pattern, too, Feck admitted. First the Selenari, now humans. Who will be next when Voss decides they're a threat? She glanced at him. You have 2 minutes before I'm required to report in. I suggest you use them wisely. With the download complete, Thal disconnected his device. Lieutenant Feck, I believe this is the beginning of an unlikely alliance. Go, she replied simply. I'll delay the response teams. Thal hesitated. Captain Reyes. Last seen heading for the upper levels, Feck supplied. The temporal enforcement drones are in pursuit. Nodding his thanks, Thal activated his comm. Spark. Change of plans. Meet me at extraction point Delta. and tell the captain." A massive explosion shook the Citadel, cutting him off mid-sentence. Emergency alarms wailed as the lights flickered. "What was that?" Thal demanded. Feck checked her command interface. "Breach in the council chamber. Someone's activated the emergency broadcasting system." Thal smiled slowly as understanding dawned. Not someone. Captain Reyes. Remy stood in the Unity Council chamber, surrounded by the wreckage of temporal enforcement drones. The explosion had been her doing, a calculated risk to breach the most secure room in the Citadel. Blood trickled from a cut above her eye, and her left arm hung awkwardly at her side, but her expression was triumphant. Before her, the Council's massive broadcasting array hummed with power, designed to transmit Council decrees simultaneously to every world in the cluster. It was now under her control. "This is Captain Mara Reyes of Earth," she announced, her voice echoing across countless worlds. "What I'm about to share has been deliberately hidden from the citizens of the Unity." She activated a data port, uploading what little evidence they'd gathered before the infiltration. Not enough to prove everything, but enough to create doubt. Now she needed to buy time for Thal to deliver the rest. For decades, certain elements within the Unity government have conspired against humanity. She continued. The recent accusations of Dreamtech smuggling are fabrications, part of a plot called Nightmare Contingency, designed to isolate and eventually eliminate human presence from the cluster. As she spoke, security forces were undoubtedly converging on her position. But for this moment, she had the attention of the entire Unity. This conspiracy reaches to the highest levels, orchestrated by High Magistrate Saran Voss, a man whose hatred of humanity has corrupted his judgment and perverted the ideals the Unity claims to uphold. The chamber doors slid open, and Voss himself entered, flanked by security officers. His exoskeleton seemed to vibrate with fury. "Enough," he commanded. "Cut the transmission." Unable to comply, responded the chamber's AI. "Override protocols in effect." Voss turned to his officers. "Arrest this human terrorist immediately." The officers hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with interrupting a live broadcast to the entire cluster. Remy smiled thinly. "Having trouble? Magistrate? Perhaps your subordinates recognize the truth when they hear it." "Truth?" Voss spat the word. "You speak of truth, after what you did at the Viridian Nebula? After you destroyed the inexorable truth without provocation, killing everyone aboard? Is that what you believe happened?" Remy asked, genuinely surprised. The inexorable truth was a weapons platform disguised as a research vessel. It was preparing to launch attacks on 3 human colonies. "Lies!" Voss roared. "My broodmate commanded that ship on a peaceful mission." Understanding dawned on Remy. "You really don't know, do you? Someone has manipulated your memories. Magistrate. Used your grief to turn you into a weapon against humanity?" Voss's compound eyes fixed on her with hatred. No human could understand the bond between broodmates. "The loss I suffered when you destroyed the inexorable truth cannot be measured. I don't deny causing that pain." Remy acknowledged. War forces impossible choices on all sides. But what you're doing now, targeting an entire species based on personal vengeance, that's not justice. It's genocide. "Enough words," Voss snarled, drawing his sidearm. "This ends now." Before he could fire, another voice cut through the tension. "It's already ended, Magistrate." Dr. Thal stood in a secondary entrance, Lieutenant Feck at his side. In his hand, he held the data extraction device, now connected to the chamber's systems. "The full records of Nightmare Contingency have been transmitted to every news outlet, military command, and government office in the cluster," Thal announced, "including the classified files on what really happened to the Selenari." Voss's attention snapped to Feck. "Lieutenant, arrest these intruders immediately!" Instead, Feck stepped forward, addressing the still-active broadcast. "I, Lieutenant Ara Feck of Temporal Enforcement, hereby testify that High Magistrate Voss has conspired to falsify evidence, manipulate Unity policy, and initiate unauthorized military action against human territories." On every screen in the chamber, data began to appear, incontrovertible evidence of Voss's conspiracy, including his own recorded confessions. "This is treason," Voss hissed, his weapon now trained on Feck. "No, sir," she replied steadily. "This is duty to the true principles of the Unity, principles you have betrayed." For a moment, it seemed Voss might fire. Then, incredibly, murmurs and shouts began to filter through the chamber's communication systems, the voices of citizens across the cluster, responding in real time to the revelations. Voices of outrage, voices demanding justice, voices of different species united in condemnation of Voss's actions. The security officers exchanged glances, then moved, not to arrest Remy, but to surround Voss. "High Magistrate Saran Voss," announced the ranking officer, "by emergency authority of the Unity Charter, you are relieved of duty pending investigation." Voss stood frozen, his world collapsing around him. "You don't understand," he said, suddenly sounding lost. "It was for the good of the Unity, for order, for justice." "True justice requires truth," Remy said quietly. "Something the Unity seems to have forgotten." As the officers led Voss away, Remy turned back to the broadcast array. "People of the Unity, what you've witnessed today is not the end, but a beginning. A chance to rebuild the principles that should unite us all: equality, honesty, and respect across species boundaries." She nodded to Thal, who terminated the broadcast. The chamber fell silent except for the distant sounds of commotion throughout the citadel. "Nice speech," Thal commented, approaching her. "Though I doubt one broadcast will change centuries of prejudice overnight." "It's a start," Remy replied, wincing as she tried to move her injured arm. "And sometimes, that's all we need." Lieutenant Feck stepped forward awkwardly. "Captain Reyes, I owe you an apology. I was complicit in Voss's scheme, even when I began to suspect the truth." "You made the right choice when it counted, Lieutenant," Remy assured her. "That's what matters in the end." "Speaking of endings," Thal interjected, "I suggest we make our exit before the Unity Council recovers from the shock and decides we're still criminals." Remy nodded, activating her comm. "Spark, bring the ship around to Extraction Point Alpha. It's time to go home." As they made their way through the Citadel, they encountered not resistance, but something far more surprising. Unity citizens from various species watching them pass, with expressions ranging from confusion to respect. News of what had transpired was spreading fast, and with it, the first fragile seeds of change. 1 month later, Remy stood on a zero-G promenade in Equinox, watching the sunset paint the crystalline towers in hues of gold and crimson. The wayward horizon had been returned to her custody, her name officially cleared by a special tribunal. More importantly, the Unity Council had repealed the emergency measures against human territories and initiated an investigation into the full scope of Voss's conspiracy. It wasn't a perfect resolution. Centuries of prejudice wouldn't disappear overnight, but it was progress. "Credit for your thoughts, Captain." Dr. Thal approached, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. He had abandoned his full perception filter, allowing subtle hints of his Selenari heritage to show, a slight luminescence to his skin, eyes that caught the light in unusual ways. "Just thinking about new beginnings," Remy replied with a smile. "The tribunal offered me a diplomatic position, You know, said they need humans who understand both sides. And will you accept? Thal asked. She shook her head. I'm a ship captain, not a politician. Besides, the Wayward Horizon needs me. Indeed we do, came Sparks' voice as he joined them, munching on some exotic alien fruit. Who else would tolerate my brilliant but occasionally catastrophic innovations? Speaking of innovations, Remy said, how are the repairs coming? Almost complete, Spark reported cheerfully. Another day, and we'll be ready to fly. The question is, where to? Remy exchanged a glance with Thal. I've been thinking about that. There are rumors of other Selenari survivors scattered throughout the outer reaches. Perhaps it's time someone went looking for them. Thal's expression softened. You would do that? Partners help each other, Remy said simply, reaching for his hand. Besides, I hear the outer reaches have some fascinating shipping routes. Very profitable. Very dangerous. You mean? Spark corrected with a grin. Count me in. The Wayward Horizon could use some proper adventure after all this political intrigue. As they walked hand in hand through Equinox's sunrise plazas, Remy felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The guilt she'd carried since the border wars wouldn't vanish completely. Some scars never truly heal, but she had found a new purpose. And with it, hope. In her pocket, something pulsed faintly. The Dream Tech fragment she'd kept, despite Thal's warnings. She hadn't told him about it yet, nor about the occasional visions it still gave her, glimpses of possible futures that might or might not come to pass. One vision in particular kept returning, a unified coalition of species, humans and Selenari among them, facing some threat beyond the known galaxy, a threat that would require all their combined wisdom and strength to overcome. But that was a challenge for another day. For now, Remy was content to walk toward the future one step at a time, alongside those who had earned her trust through fire and shadow. As if sensing her thoughts, Thal squeezed her hand. What do you see when you look at the stars now, Captain? Remy smiled, gazing upward at the first evening stars appearing above Equinox. Possibility, she answered, and the knowledge that even the universe knows when justice is due. Together, they walked toward their ship and whatever adventures awaited beyond the horizon.